see if this one's working. Jaya, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jasodanandana Brajajana Rajana. Jasodanandana Brajajana Rajana. Jamuna Tera Vanachari. Jamuna Tera Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Jai. Jai, thank you everyone. coming. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you everyone for coming. We'll be reading from the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 43, verse 5, I believe. Yes, okay. Where's verse 5? Okay. Evam nirbashtito ambashtaha kupita kopitam gajam chodayam asha krishnaya kalantaka yamopamam evam nirbarshito ambushtaha kupita kopitam gajam chodayam asha krishnaya kalantaka yamopamam evam nirbashito ambushtaha kupita kopitam gajam chodayam ashu krishnaya kalantaka yamopamam. Jaya. Evam, thus, Nirbartshitaha, threatened, Ambashtaha, the elephant keeper, Kupitaha, angered, Kopitam, the enraged, Gajam, elephant, Chodayam Asha, he goaded, Krishnaya, toward Krishna, Kala, time, Antaka, death, Yama, and Yamaraj, Upamam, comparable to, Translation and no purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jaya. Translation. Thus threatened, the elephant keeper became angry. He goaded his furious elephant, who appeared equal to time, death, and Yamaraj, into attacking Lord Krishna. Amagyan Simanandasya Ginanjana Shalakaya Shakshumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitanyena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakapaturubhya Sha Kripa Sindubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhattavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Hare Krishna, and thank you everyone for coming. I'm grateful that I don't have to speak to the wall. So thank you for coming. As previously mentioned in every class, there's too many people to recall who's contributed to the development of Krishna consciousness, but first and foremost, I will always like to offer my gratitude first and foremost to my mother and my brother, His Grace Jaya Jagannath Prabhu. So this verse, in the course of this topic, I'll get to this verse and what it reminds me of, but basically this is a verse where it's describing what we all go through. When we have more power than others, or when we think we have more power than others, we abuse that power. So I'll get to this particular verse and what it reminds me of. But we could see that this elephant keeper, he thought he was superior to Lord Krishna. He thought he had more powers than Krishna. So I would like to start off this on this note. I'd like to start off the class as usual with a quote that sets the tone of our class. So this quote is by Ernest Hemingway. So Ernest Hemingway writes, he says, quote, "There is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility lies in being superior to your former self." Let me repeat that one more time. Quote, "There is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility lies in being superior to your former self." End quote. So, thank you. What is this quote telling us? It's telling us what all universal spiritual teachings are always telling us. Namely, there are two ways we can live in this world. We can live our life to prove, or we can live our life to improve. What does that mean? That means if we live our life to improve, that means we're more concerned about being the principal. If we live our life to improve, that means we're more concerned about having principles. For example, as proven throughout the history of mankind, politicians ascend to power because they prove that they're the principal on the outside. But why are politicians ultimately removed from power? Because they prove that they have no principles on the inside. So, therefore, there's a nice, in other words, we could say, if we can interpret this another way, in other words, what is the use of attending Harvard without humility, Princeton without principles, Yale without yielding, or Stanford without standards? So there's a nice quote. It says, "Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all." So what does this mean? This essentially means is that we should be less concerned about proving and more concerned about improving. Less concerned about being the principal and more concerned about having principles. Less concerned about our position and more concerned about our disposition. Less concerned about our credentials and more concerned about the essentials, less concerned about our fame and more concerned about our faith. Shraddhavan Jana, Hoy Bhati Adhikari, Uttama, Madhyam Kanisha Shraddha Anusar. Sorry, Mataji, thank you for the garland. I didn't want to interrupt the flow. That's why I continue without offering gratitude. Jaya. I had to eventually interrupt the flow to offer some gratitude, otherwise that would have been rude on my part. So thank you. So anyways, Shraddhavan Jana Hoy Bhati Adhikari Uttama Madhya Kanisha Shraddha Anusari. So this is a verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, 64. It says, basically, we can determine the different levels of Vaishnavas. And not Vaishnavas on the outside, but what type of Vaishnava we are on the inside. And how do we determine that? We determine that by one's Shraddha, one's faith. How much does one have faith in Krishna? And how much does one love to speak about Krishna in all circumstances of life? And so that's the determining factor of the different degrees of Vaishnavas. This is the measuring stick. This is the measuring stick. Now, we could see that in the Putana pastime. So unless devotees know this Putana pastime, or people know this Putana pastime, long story short, the first demon who was sent to this world to kill baby Krishna was a demoness, a female demon named Putana. So it's described that she was 8 miles long, I think, 8 miles tall, something like that. But she shrunk into a very small size. She got all her figure in a small, so she shortened her waist. And not only that, it's described that she was a demon. She was very ugly looking, very ugly. But she disguised herself as a beautiful woman. So it's described that the residents of Vrindavan, they were thinking, especially the men, especially the men, they were thinking, wow, Putana, she's a Uttama Adhikari, the highest Vaishnavi. Why? Because she's hot. She's very beautiful. And so this is a lesson we could take in our life, is that we'll get ourselves in a lot of trouble if the measuring stick of who a great devotee is, I'm sorry to say, is our genitals. That's not the measuring stick. The measuring stick is Shastra. So what does that mean? That means we should use the theological measuring stick, Shastra, and not our biological measuring stick. We see we get ourselves in a lot. Oh, Mataji's laughing. I'm glad. So at least I got one laugh. Now I forgot my whole point. Where was I? We see throughout the history of mankind that we get ourselves in a lot of sticky situations when we use our lust, when we use our greed, and when we use our pride to measure who's a great devotee or who's a great personality in general, but especially devotees. We see we get ourselves in a lot of trouble. And so sticky situations, this reminds me of what His Holiness Jaya Maharaj says. So there's a book by, I mentioned it before, there's a book by, a poem by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada's guru. It's called Vaishnava K. And the translation is what kind of devotee are you? And basically he's talking to the mind. Are you a lusty, greedy, and proud devotee who sees other devotees as great just because of their beauty, just because of their riches, just because of their education? Or are you a humble devotee who sees people according to their Shraddha, their faith? And so in this book, Vaishnava K, the commentator of this book is Srila Prabhupada's disciple, His Holiness Jaya Maharaj. And I don't remember which verse, but basically there's a verse and a purport to that verse where His Holiness Jaya Maharaj, he says, just as a spider is never entangled in the web, so Lord Krishna can never be entangled in sticky situations. What does that mean? Sticky situation like the web of lust, the web of greed, the love of pride. He's completely transcendental to the molds of material nature. And how do we become transcendental to this web, these molds? We follow Krishna's instruction. We treat people according to the Shraddha and not according to how much money they have, how much beauty they have, how much education they have. So we see throughout history, our relationships wind up being sticky situations where you feel stuck. You don't feel any progress. You don't feel any inspiration. Why? Because you don't have the proper motive. Savaipum sam paro dharmo yato bhaktiya doshaje. Ahaitukiya pratihata yayatma atma suprasidati. We can only be satisfied when we're performing a haituki bhakti. What does that mean? No motivation. Not motivated by Jama Aishwarya Shruti Shri Bir. No motivation by, I think I'm a great personality because I'm come from a very prestigious lineage. Jama Aishwarya because I have money. Shruta, I have high education. Or Shri, I have beauty. I'm a great Vaishnava and people are treating me as such. So neither should we think we're great because of these opulences which are ultimately given by Krishna that can be taken away at any moment, nor should we consider other devotees great exclusively based on their material opulences. And we get caught up in situations. So therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 10, Arjuna, he tells Krishna, he says, Param Brahma Param Dhamma Pavitram Paramam Bhavam Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adideva Majavibhum Ahus Tarvishaya Sarve Deva Shir Nadrats Rishayas. I forgot the verse now. This wasn't in my script. But basically, Arjuna, he says, Krishna, Param Brahma, you are the supreme spirit. Param Brahma Paradhamma, you are the supreme abode. Pavitram, you are pure. You are not entangled in the web of lust. And therefore, you will not get in sticky situation. And what does that mean? That means a macho man in this material world, he thinks, yes, I have this, I'm tall, I have these muscles, I have a deep voice, and I have this facial hair. And what does that mean? It means it's state-of-the-art security system for my girlfriend. I'm her protector. But what does Arjuna say in the Gita in chapter 3? Atakina prayutayam papam charati purushaha anichan apivarshaya bala eva niyojitaha. He says, by what is one impelled to sinful activities, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force. And Krishna ultimately says, Kama esha krodha esha rajaguna samubhavaha. He says that we're all being attacked by Kama, the web of lust. And so a macho man, he may think, yes, I'm a protector of my wife, my girlfriend. But then we may, in a year's time, we may go up to this girlfriend and we may ask her, hey girlfriend, where's your macho man? He couldn't protect himself from lust. He thought he was my protector, but he couldn't protect himself from lust. So in this way, we can see that if we base greatness, great personalities based on our biological measuring stick, we get ourselves in a lot of situations. Same with our pride, same with our greed. And so this is the lesson we're meant to take. Same with the demons in the Pastime of Mohini-murti. Mohini-murti, long story short, it's described that the demigods and the demons were supposed to work together to extract the nectar of immortality. So without going too much into the details, long story short, they were supposed to split this nectar of immortality equally. So they both agreed. They had a truce. And in this pastime, the verses and the purport where Prabhupada mentioned, he says sometimes in order to achieve a certain goal, you have to work with people you don't like. And so we see that happens all the time. We have to make a truce with people we don't like just so we could achieve a certain goal. However, another lesson in this pastime is that the demons, they created a secret plan. They had a motive. They were devising among themselves. Once we get the nectar of immortality, be quiet so they won't hear us. Once we get the nectar of immortality, even though we say we're going to split it equally with the demigods, we're going to secretly take it all for ourselves. So we see that this happens in the material world. Two business partners build a business together. And naturally, since it's two of them, they're supposed to split the business rewards 50-50. But often we see that one business partner has another motivation. He wants to take it all for himself. And we see that happens in the material world all the time. And being in a spiritual society is no exception to that, because depending on what type of Vaishnava you are, what type of faith you have, then to the degree we have less faith, then to the degree we're entangled in the web of these demoniac desires. And to the degree we have more faith, to the degree we're free from these demoniac desires. So anyways, the demons, they devise a plan. Yes. Let us enjoy this nectar of immortality all by ourselves without sharing it with the demigods, even though they help us achieve this goal. So anyways, the demons stole all of the nectar of immortality, and the demigods were very morose. But the Lord appeared to them. Lord Vishnu appeared to them. He says, my dear demigods, do not worry that the demons stole the nectar of immortality. I will get it back. How? I will disguise myself as a very beautiful woman known as Mohini. And not only that, I will cause the demons to fight amongst each other. So this is the lesson we could take, that when we have improper motives, demoniac motives, that people even in the same family, the same religion, will start fighting amongst each other. You know, we may say, oh, these are my friends, these are my enemies. And once you get rid of your enemies, then what happens? The friends start fighting amongst each other for the nether immortality. This is precisely what happened. So who's our friend? Who's our enemy? Prahlad Maharaj says in the 7th canto, chapter 8, verse 9, except for the uncontrolled and misguided mind, there's no enemy in this world. When one sees everyone on a platform of equality, Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shune Chaiva Swapake Cha Pandita Samran Darshina, when we see everyone equally, that everyone is a part and parcel of Krishna, Aham Bisha Pradapita. Why? Because Krishna is the father of all living entities. And naturally, when you have the same father, you treat your brothers and sisters equally because they're related to you. So when we understand that everyone's related to us, we have no discrimination. And so this is a lesson we could take from this Mohini pastime, that if we have demoniac desires, the Lord will entangle us in the web of lust or so many desires. Not only that, the people we think are friends with, we start fighting amongst each other. Even if we have the same guru, even if we have the same group of friends, the teachers, we start fighting amongst each other. Why? Because we're not performing ahai tuki bhakti. We have so many motives. Nadanam najanam nasundaram kavitam vajaga ishakamaye mama jamani jamani shwade bhavata bhaktir ahai tuki. Why? This is precisely why Lord Chaitanya says how we can remain free from the web of material existence. He says, Nadanam najanam nasundaram. Nadanam. I do not want an unlimited amount of wealth, because I know if I have wealth, people only talk to me and glorify me because I have money. And if I don't give them the money, they're willing to kill me. We see that throughout history. Nadanam, Janam. I do not want unlimited followers. The reality is that as far as this thing of followers is concerned, because I bring this up every time, as far as social media is concerned, the reality is that nobody has more followers than us and nobody has less followers than us, because Krishna is the owner of everything. What are the 6 opulences of Krishna? Riches. I'm just stuck at riches. What is it? Riches, beauty, renunciation, knowledge, strength, and fame. What does fame mean? That means followers. But there's a nice quote by His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj as far as riches are concerned. He says in a lecture on YouTube, when he was giving sannyasa initiation to Amala Bhakta Prabhu, who's now about Amala Bhakta Maharaj, he says, Srila Prabhupada was once asked by a devotee for permission to renounce everything. Srila Prabhupada's response was, Krishna owns everything. So what do you have to renounce? The only thing you have to renounce is the misconception that you have something to renounce. And so it's very simple. Just like I think the example was given that nobody could say, I'm renouncing the White House. How can we renounce the White House? You never owned it in the first place. In much the same way, how can we give up money if we never owned it in the first place? So riches, they're only one of the 6 opulences of Krishna that he owns. But another opulence is fame. What does that mean? Followers. That means if we don't own money, we don't have any money. Our net worth is exactly the same, 0, because Krishna is Bhotaram Yagya Tapasam Sarva Loka Maheshwaram Surhidam Sarva Bhutanam Gyatom Mam Shantarishati. He's Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. He owns everything. That means we have no money. Everyone's net worth is exactly the same. Zero. Zero. What does that mean? That means if Krishna is the owner of all riches and all the 6 opulence, what are one of the opulences? Fame. That means if he's the owner of fame or all followers, that means nobody actually has more followers than us and nobody has less followers than us. Krishna is the owner of all followers. We have no subscribers. We have no retweets. We have no views. We have no, help me out. What's another word? We subscribers, retweets, followers. There's another one I'm missing. Come on, this is social media age. Anyways, that's the whole point. And not only that, we have no beauty, as I was discussing yesterday. You can't even see your face. What we're seeing every day is a reflection of our face. And so actually, and we're going to be evicted, just like if you're in an apartment. You cannot say, I own the apartment. Who's the owner? The landlord. And the landlord could evict you at any moment. So we see throughout the Bhagavatam that Krishna, he can evict you from your riches, from your fame, from your beauty, why? Because he's the owner of all these opulences. Your knowledge, there's so many pastimes like that. Why? Because we're not the owners of any of these things. So there's actually no reason to be proud, and there's no reason to be envious, because we're all on an equal level. And so to the degree we think we have riches and others don't, then to that degree, we become proud. Not only that, to the degree we think we don't have riches and others do, to that degree we become envious. So same with fame, same with all the opulences of Krishna. So in this regard, there's a nice pastime in the Krishna book. There are 90 chapters to the Krishna book. 90 chapters. Harish Prabhu, can you look up something real quick? And once I done telling this story, maybe you could give the exact reference. So this is a story in the Krishna book. So you could go to Vedabase. This is a story in a Krishna book, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it's in chapter there's 90 chapters, and this is in chapter 88 or 89, or one of those 80s. And the title of it, I think the second part of the title has something to do with, I think it says Bahulashva and Shruttadev. Bahulashva and Shruttadev. So long story short, so you could tell me the exact chapter, so I'll have a reference. So long story short, there was a, Prabhu, do you remember this chapter? Bahulashva. So there was a rich king in Mithila, a rich king and a poor brahmana, and they invited Krishna to their party at the same exact time. So I don't remember which one. I believe the rich king was Bahulashva and the poor brahmana was Shruttadev. So long story short, both a rich king named Bahulashva and a poor brahmana named Shruttadev, when Lord Krishna came into their city named Mithila, they both invited Krishna to their party at the same exact time. Not only that, it's described that Krishna was you could say like a celebrity, and he was accompanied by all these all-star sages, Shavana Muni, Shukadev Goswami, Vyasadeva. All these great enlightened souls were accompanying Lord Krishna in Mithila. So it's like, roll out the red carpet. So basically, both Bahulashva, the rich king, and Shruttadev, the poor Brahmin, they approached Lord Krishna and all the great sages, and they invited them to both their parties at the exact same time. Now, in the material world, since we're entangled in a web of Maya, greed. Now, if we had a rich friend and a poor friend, and they're inviting us to their party at the same exact time, it's no-brainer. I'm not gonna go to some place where it's like potentially roaches and infested with rats and stuff. Of course not. I'm gonna go to the Marriott Hotel, where there's a nice banquet, nice garments, nice beautiful people, etc. So it's no-brainer. So what was Krishna's decision? So for devotees or any people in general who are unfamiliar with this story, so I asked them the question: whose party do you think Krishna went to? Now most devotees would naturally say, "Oh yes, Krishna, he went to the poor Brahmanas party because it's described that Krishna is Dina Bandhu Jagapate. I believe he's the Lord of the poor or something like that. I think that's the translation. And naturally, he likes people who are humble. However, it's described throughout the Srimad-Bhagavatam, throughout all spiritual teachings, that just because you're rich, that does not mean you're proud. And just because you're poor, that does not mean you're humble. You could be rich and humble, and you could be poor and proud and envious. So spirituality, humility, it doesn't wear a certain dress. It's not about what we dress on the outside, but how are we dressing ourselves on the inside. We may have the outfit of a spiritualist, but the real question is do we have the infit of a spiritualist? So you could be a humble devotee and rich, and you could be a poor person and proud and envious. And so whose party normally, so most devotees say, yes, Krishna went to the poor Brahmanas party. However, it's described that Krishna, he expanded himself, and apparently he expanded all the sages. Why? Because the rich king and the poor Brahmana, they were both Krishna, pure, unmotivated Krishna bhaktas. So Krishna went to both of their parties, actually. Why? Because the rich king, he was neither proud of his riches, and nor was the Brahmana envious of the king's riches. They both realized that actually since Krishna is Bhotaram Yagya Tapasam Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, he owns everything. What does that mean? That means our net worth is exactly the same. Broke. So there was no pride coming from the king, and there was no envy coming from the Brahmana. And so therefore Krishna, he went to both of their parties. So this is a lesson we could take in our own life. So anyways, so that's a lesson in all universal spiritual teachings. Yes, devotees could be great Vaishnavas, even if they're rich. However, this is Kali Yuga. Not only is this Kali Yuga, it's the material world. And what does that mean? That since it's the material world, that means we're entangled in the web of the most material nature. What does that mean? Lust, anger, greed, pride. And not only that, not only because it's a material world, but especially because it's Kali Yuga, we're especially entangled in these most material nature to the greatest degree. So what does that mean? That means, generally speaking, we treat people according to their opulence. Yes, this is a great personality. Why? Because they have money. We see when Prabhupada tried to spread the Krishna consciousness movement throughout India, nobody wanted to help him. But when he came to America, and then when he became a success, he amassed, through his disciples' humble service, he amassed a lot of wealth. Then everyone around the world wanted to help him. And so what does that mean? That means, it's described in a nice quote. It says, men make counterfeit money. In many more cases, money makes counterfeit men. So this is a lesson in all universal spiritual teaching. A person is not considered great based on their opulences. And this was exactly what Lord Chaitanya tells Raghunath Das Goswami in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya Lila, chapter 6, verse 198. He tells Raghunath Das Goswami, he says, although the community of Vaishnavas, so long story short, Raghunath Das Goswami, he's one of the 6 Goswamis who are the principles followers of Lord Chaitanya, and it's described that he came from a very wealthy family. And so, especially Raghunath Das Goswami's father and uncle. And so in this verse from the Anshalila, chapter 6, verse 198 of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya tells Raghunath Das Goswami, he says, although the community of Vaishnavas consider your father and your uncle to be pure Vaishnavas, great Vaishnavas, because they're always giving charity and their wealth, donating their wealth to the Brahmanas and to the other Vaishnavas, still, they are not considered, they're almost Vaishnavas, but they're not pure Vaishnavas. Why? Because Lord Chaitanya says they're still attached to Netflix. He doesn't say that. They're still attached to material enjoyment. And so therefore, they would rather spend the majority of the time wasting time in sense gratification. And so therefore, they would rather, do other things than hear Bhagavatam, hear the glories of Krishna. But still, nevertheless, we have to offer them gratitude because they're supporting the Vaishnavas and the Brahmanas. And so this is a lesson we could take in our life, is that we shouldn't consider people great exclusively on their wealth alone. Not that, oh yes, you have money, therefore I offer my respect to you, and I'm very kind to you. And if you don't have money, I'm very unkind to you, and I'm very aggressive to you. Not that. And so we could see that causes what I'm going to get to actually later, something called the mad elephant offense, because this verse today we're describing is that this elephant tried to kill Krishna. This elephant master who was on an elephant tried to kill Krishna. And so we could see that if we commit this mad elephant offense because we're attached to material opulences, then we'll kill the Krishna bhakti within us. And so there's a nice purport in this regard, because the tendency is that in the material world we think, oh yes, I can only do great things if I have money, because we see in the material world people are only showing respect to people with money. However, let's see what Srila Prabhupada says in this regard. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila chapter 9, verse 44, and Prabhupada's purport to that verse, he says, quote, and I'm breaking up the quote a little bit to make it shorter, but you can read that entire purport. But part of the purport Prabhupada says in his purport is, quote, a man need not be rich or opulent to act for the welfare of humanity. Sometimes rich men are very proud that they can perform beneficial activities for human society, whereas others cannot. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also declared that to propagate the bhakti cult of devotional service in human society, one does not need to be very rich. Anyone who knows the art can do it, and thus render the highest benefit to humanity. So Prabhupada says the highest benefit to humanity. Who can render that? One who's more concerned about spiritual wealth and less concerned about material wealth. So Srila Prabhupada is describing the difference between having gold on the inside and having a heart of gold on the inside. And so we see throughout this material world, generally speaking, we can't appreciate a heart of gold. Why? Because we can't see it. For example, we could see credit cards, checks, cash in a vault of gold, but we cannot see humility, appreciation, forgiveness in a heart of gold. And so people in this material world, they only appreciate things we could see. You cannot see humility. So sometimes people are duplicitous. They're not really humble. But you cannot see humility, you cannot see appreciation, you cannot see forgiveness. Sometimes we put on a show, you cannot see a heart of gold. But we could see, as proven in so many times, I'll use politicians as a case, but religion is no exception. But as proven throughout the history of mankind, politicians ascend to power. Why? Because they have the gold on the outside. But why are they ultimately removed from power? They do not have a heart of gold on the inside. So you have to have these qualities. Yasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarva gunais tatra samasate surahar. Sarva gunais. Without these good qualities, we see no relationship works out. Without a heart of gold, you can have so much money, so much fame, but without a heart of gold, you lose it all. It's proven. You can have so much money. So there's a nice quote in this regard. It says, you never invite a thief into your house. So why would you allow thoughts that steal your joy to make themselves at home in your mind? And so it's very simple that you could be the richest person, and we see celebrities are so rich, but if one magazine criticizes them, they want to sue them of all their wealth. They have money, they have fame, they have all the women, they have so many cars, they could go anywhere all over the world, but one person criticizes them. It's enough to take away all of their happiness. And we see this in the pastime Hiranyakashipu. It's described, Hiranyakashipu, 99.9% of the universe honored him. One person just not dishonored him, but neglected his instructions, Prahlad. And that was enough to take away 100% of his happiness. Same with the Daksha pastime. Daksha is described that 99.9% of the universe stood up in respect for Daksha. One person didn't, Lord Shiva. And that was enough to take away 100% of his happiness. Same with Durvasa Muni. It's described that Durvasa Muni had probably 10,000 disciples. something like that. But he was envious of one person, Ambarish, and that was enough to take away 100. So we see more followers do not mean more happiness. More qualities mean more happiness, not more followers. So this is proven throughout the mankind. And so we see that all these personalities, Hiranyakashipu, Daksha, and all these tyrants throughout history, they had so much money. But why did they lose their fame, their family, their faith, etc.? Why? Because they didn't have a heart of gold on the inside. So that's a lesson we can take in our own lives. So in this regard, there's a nice quote that says, money, fame, power, and high education increase your net worth, not your self-worth. You are already valuable with a smaller apartment and no title behind your name. The only title you need to feel good about yourself is child of Almighty God. And so Martin Luther King Jr., there's a nice speech in this regard. It's a speech he actually gave here in Chicago, actually. It's called The Drum Major Instinct. It's a speech that I normally always quote from him because it's profound. It's about, the speech is about distinguishing the difference between pride and humility. So in his speech, Martin Luther King Jr., he says, I've been to many churches, and they say we have so many doctors, we have so many lawyers, and we have so many teachers. That's fine, because doctors need to go to church, lawyers need to go to church, and teachers need to go to church too. But they say that as if the other members in the church don't count. The church is the one place where a person ought to forget that they're a doctor, that they're a lawyer, that they have a degree behind their name. Without this humility, the church is nothing but a social club with a thin veneer of religiosity. Even if a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should go out and sweep streets like Michelangelo painted, like Beethoven composed music, like Shakespeare wrote poetry. Everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to know Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know about the second theory of thermodynamics and physics to serve. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't even have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love, and everyone can be that servant. Jiveta Swarup Hoy Krishneta Nitya Das Krishneta Tatata Shakti Beta Be Prakash. So this is our understanding, is that the criteria for greatness is not how much opulence you have, but your humility, your servants, your service disposition. And so that's the criteria of greatness. Now, anyone could pretend to be humble, but pretend to have the service mood, but trust me, Christian will test you. Just like you go to school, just like suppose the teacher comes to you and they say, my dear student, have you mastered your math, your science, and your other classes? And the student may say yes. But what does the teacher say next? Okay, let me give you a test. And so we see throughout the Bhagavatam that Krishna gives everyone a test to test if they're truly humble or if they're truly pretending to be humble. So how does Krishna give us a test? It's mentioned in the same test is mentioned throughout the Bhagavatam in so many pastimes. And what is that? Anyone could be Gopi, Bartu, Kamalayo, Dasa, Anudasa. What does that mean? The servant of 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 the servant, etc. We may say that a million times, but Krishna will test if you truly believe that. And how does he test it? He tested it in this way, generally speaking, because we're all swallowed by the web, entangled on the web of kites of a dharma. What does that mean? Cheating religion. And what is the foundation of cheating religion? Near Matsaranam, when we're not free from this envy. So the foundation of cheating religion is envy. And what does that mean? That means anyone can be humble when you're honored. Try being humble when someone else is honored. And so we see Durvasa Muni, he was humble when he was honored, but when Ambarish was honored, he wasn't humble. When Ramachandra Khan was honored, he was humble. When Haridas Thakur was honored, he wasn't humble. When Daksha was honored, he was humble. When Lord Shiva was honored, he wasn't humble. So we see this is the main criteria of the main test that Krishna will test us, because he's in control. And so to the degree we realize that Krishna is the owner of all opulences, we have no riches, we have no fame, meaning we have no followers, we have no beauty, we have no renunciation, we have no knowledge. Krishna is the owner of everything. He gives and he takes away according to his will. And so if we think we have followers, that means what happened? We become envious if somebody else has more followers than us. And if we think we don't have followers, etc. But to the degree we realize that Krishna is the owner of everything, that means nobody has any followers. Krishna has all the followers. So there is no question of being proud, nor there's any question of being envious. So you're always shanta, peaceful. There's a saying, your life will become a masterpiece when you learn to master peace. And how do we master peace? Lord Chaitanya tells Sri Rupa Goswami that Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ata Eva Shant Bhuti Muti Siddhi Kami Sakali Ashant. What does that mean? It says a Krishna Bhakta, he is always shanta, peaceful. Why? Because he is Nishkama. He has no desires other than Krishna Bhakti. He has no desires for fame. To the degree we have this desires for fame and followers, that means we'll become proud if we think we have followers and others don't. Or if we have no followers, to the degree we think we have no followers and others do, we become envious. But to the degree we realize that nobody has any followers, that means shanta, peaceful. We're not proud, we're not envious. And so others, so this is the criterion, this is the test. So Krishna will test you. So this is the lesson we can take. I think we have a few more minutes. Let me see if there's any other last points. Oh yes, getting to the verse I was mentioning. So to the degree we want to be superior to everyone, to the degree we'll commit this offense. And what is that offense? The mad elephant offense. So what is the mad elephant offense? This is described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 19, verse 156. So these are Lord Chaitanya's teachings to Rupa Goswami. And so it's described that, so I'm relating this to the verse today, this elephant keeper, he made his elephant so angry that he wanted to kill Krishna. So it's described that if we commit the mad elephant offense, and what does that mean? Vaishnava aparad. That means criticizing Vaishnavas or treating them according to their wealth or lack of wealth. And these things cause the mad elephant offense. So just as this elephant keeper wanted to kill Krishna with this elephant, so this mad elephant offense kills our Krishna bhakti. Of course, our bhakti can never be finished because Krishna can never be destroyed. He's always within our heart. Ishvara sarvabhutana hridesha arjuna tishati. Since the soul is indestructible, since Krishna is indestructible, Krishna bhakti can never be destroyed, but it can be covered. Nitya siddha Krishna prema sadhya kabunai shravanadi shuddhi cheti koriye udoi. So Krishna bhakti, it can never be destroyed because Krishna is situated in the heart, the soul is situated in the heart, and both of these are destroyed. That means Krishna bhakti is indestructible, but it can be covered up. So when we commit the elephant offense, we cover it up. Just like buried treasure. What is buried treasure covered by? By dirt. So when we commit this mad elephant offense, so much more dirt comes into our hearts. And this dirt is considered anarthas, unwanted things. And so to the degree we commit this offense, then the further we remain away from the treasure of our heart, this heart of gold, because it's covered up. And so this is the lesson we could take in our own lives. I cannot see what the time is. What does that say? Can anybody tell me what the clock says? Oh, 8:37. Okay, maybe I'll get in the last few minutes one last point. Then maybe we could in 3 minutes and take. So basically, this verse. So this described that this mad elephant offense. It kills. The analogy is that it kills the garden of our bhakti. So this is actually the analogy is that it appears in the same chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So the original verse, the original analogy is described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 19, verse 151. So it's a famous verse. It says, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Poi Bhatilata Bija. It says the living entities are wandering all over the universe. But Bhagyavan, if they're very fortunate, they get the Bhakti Lakta. The Bhakti Lakta, the seed of devotion. But it can be destroyed by the Hatimata. What is Hatimata? The mad elephant. The hati mata can destroy the bhakti lata. The mad elephant offense can destroy our loving elegance. And so a seed, how does a seed grow? There's two ways a seed can grow. One way a seed can grow and one way it can't. A seed can grow in fertile soil and it doesn't grow in futile soil. What does that mean? So that's a lesson we can say. How do we grow? We grow in fertile association and we don't grow in futile association. So the scriptures, they both describe what we should do and what we shouldn't do. What should we do? Shreya Maide Kona Shreya Jivara Hoisa Krishna Bhakta Sangha Vina Shreya Nahi Ar. We should associate with devotees. Why? Because this is the most auspicious thing, because it makes the seed of our bhakti grow. And what shouldn't we do? Asat Sangha Tiyaga, E Vaishnava Achar, Sri Sangi Eka Sadhu Krishna Bhakta Ar. We shouldn't associate with non-devotees. Why? Because non-devotees prevent the seed of our bhakti from growing. So I could say more in this regard, but we're running out of time. We'll see. I'll just end with this. Because the reality is that, yeah, we may criticize other devotees for being association, and other people for being a good association, but Prahlad Maharaj, the real bad or good association is the mind. You could be surrounded by fertile association like Hiranyakashipu. 99.9% of the universe glorify him. You can't get more fertile than that. But one person didn't respect his instructions, Prahlad, and that was enough to take away all of his happiness. So really, the real fertile association is the qualities in our hearts, not external things. But nevertheless, in the beginning of our Krishna consciousness, yes, the tendency is that we should focus on people who uplift our spirits. And then we can also see, once they uplift our spirits, cultivators, then we can see everything as a blessing, even the bad association. Because without bad association, you can't exhibit good qualities like forgiveness. You can only forgive people who treat you like crap. So there's a saying, when life treats you like crap, think of it as fertilizer meant to help you grow. So actually, our enemies, more than our friends, are doing more to help us grow in Krishna consciousness than our friends. But nevertheless, in the beginning of our Krishna consciousness, we should focus and associate with people who lift our spirits and encourage us. So I'll end with this nice quote. It's from one famous Christian preacher. So he says, quote, I'll end with this, quote, "You can have a good seed that's healthy and strong. It's full of potential. But if it's not planted in good soil, it's not going to become what it was created to be. The problem is not with the seed. A scientist can study the seed, run tests. They will find that it's full of life. If it's an apple seed, it has apples in it. If it's a rose bush, it has blossoms in it. But if it's planted in soil that's full of rots, weeds, and thorns, it may grow some, but it's not going to produce what it should. It may survive, but it's not going to be healthy. It's the same principle in life. You're a seed. You are full of gifts, talents, potential. But if you plant yourself in unhealthy soil, if you hang around friends that compromise and pull you down, if you're in an environment that's limited with people that tell you what you can't become, you won't see the growth that you should. Not because there's something wrong with your seed. You're made in the image of Almighty God. The problem is with the soil. The rots, the thorns, the weeds are choking the life out of your seed. We have enough negative things in life that we have no control over. Be selective about what you do have control over. Driving to work, put on something uplifting, music that inspires you. Listen to a message that builds your faith. Keep your seed in good soil. And so this reminds me of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada, who started ISKCON. He provided a good soil for the hippies. And during the hippie generation, you know, the government, the Brahmanas in India, everyone told them what they couldn't do. But Srila Prabhupada provided good soil for them because he always told them what they could do. And so I'll end with this quote. It says, surround yourself with the dreamers and the doers, the believers and the thinkers, but most of all, surround yourself with those who see the greatness within you, even when you don't see it in yourself. And that's our very Srila Prabhupada. And so we can see this is why the fruit The tree of devotional service of his ISKCON desire tree spread throughout the entire world because he provided fertile association for everyone, especially the people who were told what they couldn't do by general society. So this is a lesson we could take in our own lives. Mahajano Yenagata Sampataha. Let's follow the great souls like Srila Prabhupada by always encouraging people and telling them what they could do instead of being like a Hiranyakashipu, always discouraging them and telling them what they can't do. So that's our topic for today. I think we have 4 minutes left. Is there any discussion on this topic? Please help my happiness grow like a seed by offering something. If not, we can end there. Because like I said, when life treats you like crap, it's a good thing too. I see Matsuji is reflecting. We're patiently waiting for the light bulb.
Since you were putting a lot of emphasis on, the development of good qualities within the heart, and that's the invisible part of any person. And you spent a lot of time pointing to the externals that are visible and persons giving attention to the externals rather than the internal. And you came to a final conclusion that the internal is nourished by the very fertile soil provided by Srila Prabhupada within this organization. So what would you say is the most important personal action one can take to truly take advantage of this fertile soil to allow for these invisible good qualities to develop?
Oh, yes. It's what Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami tells us in Adi Leela, chapter 17, verse 31 and 32. Urva bahukari koha shuna sarva loka. Nama sutre ganti padakante e shloka. He says one should string this verse around a thread of the holy name and wear it on one's neck for continuous remembrance. And what is that verse? Trinada pisuni chena toror ivasahi shnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahadi. One's disposition should, in order to cultivate the seed of one's bhakti, and you could say provide fertile association for one's bhakti to grow, one's disposition should be more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. That reminds me of something. And ready to offer all respects to others without expecting respect in return. So offering respect with others, just like yesterday was Thanksgiving. So when do people generally give thanks to others? When they need something from them. If I need some money from you, I give thanks. When I want some sex, some lust from you, I give you thanks. When I need some prestige, I want to use your fame to expand my fame, I give you thanks. That's when we give thanks generally. Why? Because we're entangled in the web of material existence. But that's not the type of thanks Krishna advises. The type of thanks is to thank everyone, regardless of what type of Vaishnava they are, all levels. But the tendency is that, since we're in a material world, especially since the Kali Yuga, yes, we honor people who have money, who have beauty, who have high education. Why? Because I need something from you. If I don't need something from you, then what's the point of giving you thanks? So every day is actually an opportunity to give thanks to everyone, to all devotees, especially devotees who are giving their life to Krishna. And that's what Srila Prabhupada said in the purport I mentioned earlier from the Adi Leela chapter 9 verse 44. The highest benefit somebody can render is not to give money, but to give these teachings, the spiritual wealth. That's the highest benefit. So there's a difference between doing good and the difference between being good. Doing good means you have money, material wealth. Being good means you have spiritual wealth. Not everyone can do good, but everyone can be good. So what does that mean? Not everyone can donate money, but everyone can donate their faith, their wisdom, their love, their humility. And so we could see that this humility provides fertile soil for anywhere to grow, whether it's a family, whether it's a business, and especially, when it's a spiritual community. And that makes it even more detrimental to the community when we don't practice what we preach. We're preaching this every day, but if we're not doing it, so every day is an opportunity to give thanks to people without any motive, especially devotees who are trying to give the highest benefit, as Srila Prabhupada says. They're giving their life, they're giving this wisdom to the best of their ability. So every day is an opportunity to, and what happens if we don't? Hatimata destroys the Bhatilata. This mad elephant offense will creep in. And so therefore we find no happiness at all, no happiness. And not only that, when we're unhappy, then what happens? We commit more offenses. So what's the solution? The solution is Srinadapi Suni Chena Taror Iva Sahishnuna Amani Namanadena Kirtaniya Saradi. You could start at any moment. So what is that? Do it at any moment. Every day is an opportunity to offer gratitude. So if you refuse to do it, then fine. That's your choice. Then commit the hatimata and then be miserable and still find fault with all the devotees. So that's your choice. If you want to make that your choice, then that's fine. Then be miserable. So it describes how we could be happy when we're more humble than a blade of grass, etc. So basically, I'll end with this quote that I forgot to quote in the 4th canto, chapter 16, verse 7 on the Bhagavatam. 4th canto, chapter 16, verse 7. It describes that Prithu Maharaj, he was more humble than a blade grass, more tolerant than a tree, etc. Here's the exact quote. It says, quote, "This King Prithu will be very, very kind to all citizens, even though a poor person may trample over the king's head by violating the rules and regulations. The king, out of his causeless mercy, will be forgetful and forgiving. As a protector of the world, he will be as tolerant as the earth itself." Now, this is very significant. Now, sometimes people say tolerance is hard. It's not hard. Just like, who do we tolerate? If we need something for somebody, we tolerate it, right? If we don't need something from somebody, we don't tolerate them. So tolerance is very easy when we need something from somebody. But if we don't, so this verse says, anyone can be humble and tolerant when somebody else has more power than you. Try being humble and tolerant when you have more power than somebody else. So this verse says, when a poor person neglects the rules and regulations, and what does that mean? We all have our man-made rules and regulations aside from, the rules, temporary rules in here. And so sometimes people say, okay, forget you, I don't care what you think. That's exactly what Prahlad did to Hiranyakashipu. But Hiranyakashipu, 99.9% of the universe cared what he think. Only one person didn't care what he think. And so what did Hiranyakashipu? He said, I cannot tolerate this. Only one person doesn't care what I think, so I'm willing to do everything in my means to teach him a lesson. But what happened? Hiranyakashipu was the one who was taught a lesson. And so that's a lesson we can take. When we have power, when we have position, the motive shouldn't be, instilling fear in people that, I'm so powerful. If you don't do everything exactly what I say, even though so many people are doing what I say, one person doesn't do what I say, then I'll use my power against you. No, nobody's powerful. Christians nobody has any power. So people are promoted and demoted based on Krishna's will. So when a humble devotee is promoted or demoted, he's undisturbed because he knows it's Krishna's will. But if we're proud, when we're promoted and demoted, we become disturbed and we see everything as everyone else's fault. No, it's all Christians' will. Even Haridas Thakur wasn't allowed in the Jagannath Puri temple. Lord Chaitanya is sitting here having a party in a Jagannath Puri temple, and Haridas never complained. The Lord, I thought I was Namacharya. You not going to invite me to the VIP? Like, what's going on? So there's two VIPs. We can consider ourselves a VIP, a very important person, or we consider ourselves a VIP, a very insignificant person. And so we should consider ourselves very insignificant because this is a lesson where we remain undisturbed, and this type of mentality creates fertile soil for the seed of our bhakti to grow. So there's many things that could be said, but these are some lessons we could take. So therefore, Jimi Hendrix, I'll end with this. He says, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. So thank you, everyone. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.